Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tony Rios, and I'm a senior executive in our federal government, as well as a graduate of Key's Executive MPA program. So it's an honor to be hosting this webinar for my AU Key family. Thank you for joining us today to discuss how we can all drive positive change through adaptive leadership, especially under these unprecedented times in our government's history. It's my opinion that identifying and seizing every opportunity to leverage the effects of COVID-19 in order to transform your organization into a model workplace is where really the future is. And that is my definition of true adaptive leadership. So I'm going to start today's session with a video that I am hoping will set the tone for the next 60 minutes. And now the video.
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected, where everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, there's only one space left to innovate in: you. Right now, you are a central point in the raging tornado of change fueled by digitization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation. Well, the list goes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Think about self-driving cars or computers that can learn and think. The way we work will never be the same. The skills we need will be dramatically different. Winning or losing are now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response? How will you discover new opportunities in one of the most transformational times in human history? Are you driving change, or are you being driven by it? Disruption has become the new normal. With change, it's always gradually, then suddenly, well, things really have stopped happening gradually. This change is exponential. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is now wired and intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, farms, even our bodies will be wired with sensors and will talk to each other. These game changers are also combinatorial. They amplify each other, creating a perfect storm of change. Quantum computing fuels big data. The Internet of Things fuels artificial intelligence and deep learning, which fuels robotics. However, anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. Human-only traits such as creativity, imagination, intuition, emotion, and ethics will be even more important in the future, because machines are very good at simulating, but not at being. Yes, robots and software will do some of our work, but this will allow us to focus on things that cannot be automated. To imagine change squared, you've got to start engaging more with what might be, not just with what is. Immerse yourself in the immediate future, 5 to 7 years out from today. We need to go beyond technology and data to reach human insights and wisdom. Technology represents the how of change, but humans represent the why. The future is about holistic business model. The opportunity is to be liquid, to learn just in time, not just in case, not single improvements, but complete transformations, not individual systems, but new ecosystems. Humanity is where true and lasting value is created. We will engage, relate, and buy things because of the experiences they provide, because of their transformative power. The future doesn't just happen, the future gets happened. The new way to work is to embrace technology, but not to become it. The future is in technology, yet the bigger future lies in transcending it. Let's live and lead from here.
All right. So I don't think there's anything in that video that we can't start using right now in today's government. And the video when you take it as a whole, sure, it seems a little futuristic. They talk about artificial intelligence and probably a lot of technology that you don't see that's currently being utilized in government. Some of that may seem a little bleeding edge, but that's really how you need to start thinking. You are the leaders of tomorrow's government, and in order for you to be able to compete with the leaders of foreign governments, you need to be forward-looking, forward-thinking, and this COVID-19 experience that we are all undergoing is really a once in a lifetime experience. I don't think I would ever have thought we would be in this situation. If you told me that I was going to be working from home for 2 to 3 months, I probably could not even have fathomed it. So the video was somewhat extreme, but it was done intentionally, because that's how I want you to start thinking about the things that you can do in government. So I've simplified what we're going to do today into essentially 3 objectives. So hopefully by the end of the webinar, you can walk out of here and you can actually examine the impacts that COVID-19 has had on you, both professionally and personally, and its effects on your ability to lead. Now, everybody's going through different experiences right now, but I want all of us to basically assess, take some time to think about what this is doing to us. Then I want you to think about the extent to which you have been able to adapt to becoming a virtual leader and its effect on the people that you lead. So first, we're going to look at the effects on us, and then how our reaction to COVID-19 is affecting our workforce. And then the third objective is that I want us to talk about different ways that from this we can all emerge as better, more effective leaders by mastering our virtual presence and also by driving other positive changes throughout your organization. So in the lower right-hand corner, I have basically the target audience, and that really anybody can benefit from this webinar. You can be a team lead, a supervisor, a manager, a senior executive, all the way up to a departmental agency head, in my view. All right, so I've told you a little bit about me, and I'm going to tell you a little more. But first, I want all of us to, I guess, tell each other in this virtual room a little bit about ourselves. So through a poll, I'm going to ask you 4 questions. Now, the poll will appear on your screen, and you're going to have 45 seconds to answer these 4 questions. So at the end of the 45 seconds, I will share the results, and you all will get a better idea of who else is in the room with us. And while you do that, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the government for over 26 years. And in that time, I've been very fortunate. I've led organizations through large-scale change efforts. And almost all of those efforts involve the introduction of new technology. Twice, in fact, we issued regulations to make sure that the changes that we implemented were permanent. I've taken programs and converted them to entirely paperless organizations. And I've partnered with private industry and created a shared vision where even private insurance companies and nonprofit organizations invested their own IT resources to eliminate our use of paper in certain business lines. So, and then of course, this year, I am overseeing an effort to transition 100% of all executive agencies, federal departments, and the US Postal Service into using one singular system for electronically filing workers' compensation claims. That happens to be a system that I conceptualized and oversaw its development. So why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you this because I want you to know that I am not just getting up here telling you to go out and change the world. It's difficult to change or permanently entrenched things that are in our government. right now, and it's difficult to change minds. So I know it isn't easy. I know I'm not tasking you with something simple. It will require a lot of convincing of a lot of people, and you will encounter a lot of resistance. And for as much resistance as you encounter, you're going to encounter twice as many naysayers. But you can do it. You have to lead with conviction because it's the right thing to do. All right, so enough about me. Now, I think are we ready to share the poll? Yes. All right, so according to the poll, we have 64% women, 35% men. 91% of us are public servants, so that's good. At least, speaking to the audience that I'm familiar with. Most of the folks are either 13s, 14s, and 15s, and I'm the only SCS in the room now. So what's your affiliation with American University? It looks like 62% of you do not have one, but 23% go. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing the results. And by the way, if a window remains on your screen, all you have to do is hit the X or minimize the window. Let's go right into the first exercise. So I said that I wanted us to examine the impacts that COVID-19 has had on us individually. So you think about how it's changed you. Has it made you a more pleasant person, a more grumpy person at home, meaning personally? And also, what has it done to you professionally? And let's see also the effects that it's had on the people that you lead. So we've been doing this for about 2 months now. So it might be a little too in the distant past for you to recall kind of what we went through when we first started teleworking. So I am going to have us watch a video of some folks that I think the video was recorded maybe 2 weeks after everybody started teleworking.
Hello from my home office. I'm Washington Post tech columnist Jeff Fowler, and like a lot of other people, I've been told to work from home during the coronavirus. Let's video conference in a bunch of other folks who've been dealing with this for a while.
My name is Tim Perzik in San Francisco, and it's been 7 days since I've been in the office.
I'm Maria Fernandez Guajardo, and I live in Sunnyvale, California. I have been working from home for a week.
My name is Jared Spataro. I'm here in Seattle. It's been 6 days since I was asked to work from home.
Did you have a home office already? Is this a room that got converted? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in my home office. We were lucky enough that we have one. Our guest room is part home office, part guest room.
So it's its own self-contained room. I'm at a proper desk, though I do not have a new display or monitor.
Oh, she bursts in and just wants me to pet her while I'm on my conference calls. It's nothing like having the companionship of your dog for a difficult conference call.
Our work days were bleeding into our personal lives. We were just not used to this thing, right? We also keep looking at our watches telling us that we have been sitting for the entire day, and none of our...
Mine thinks I've died, I think.
Horrible.
I'm really focused on movement. I like to walk and run a lot. That's my reward for the end of the day, the thing that I get to go and do as a break.
I don't know if that the relationship part of it is going to suffer down the road, but it's too early to say.
Has anything in your process so far just not worked, like broken? I mean, I'll give you an example. Last Wednesday morning, maybe it was a neighborhood thing, maybe it's happened to you too. My Comcast connection went out entirely.
I had the same issue with AT&T, and I have Uverse, and it went down on Thursday, and I think I had 6 or 7 calls starting at 7 in the morning that are all video based.
Oh yeah. So the first day that I had to work from home, it was a multitude of disasters on the same day. My husband had dental surgery. There was a fire in my street, so my kids got released from school earlier, and the internet went down. So that was my first day working from home. I'm like, oh my God.
But I feel like I'm working like 12, 14-hour days right now. Have you had any of that?
I try not to work and have the same routine as I used to have prior to working from home. Wake up, you shower, you get dressed, nicely dressed, out of the hoodies, we are properly dressed, And what I do is that I go for a walk to the nearby Starbucks and I grab a coffee and I bring it home. It gets me a nice walk in the morning. So the moment I come to the house, I'm at work. Like that's my start of the day, not before.
One of the solutions to distance is undivided attention. Somebody working in Dubai, a team member in Singapore, that type of thing. And to make sure that those conversations are, I guess what I would refer to as interpersonally nutritious, I really try to, my phone is face down.
The way I run my calendar is that I create blocks in my calendar when I'm not having meetings and I get stuff done.
I have no other windows up active while I am on the video chat. Little things that are, I don't know, sort of behavioral nudges that I've set up for myself so that I am really focused on what I'm doing right now.
And then in the afternoons, what I do is that I take the last call, the last meeting that I had, like in the calls, and then I add 30, 45 minutes to it, and I declare the end of the day, that I will close my laptop and I will like tell my family, I am done with work.
So I don't know if any of that sounded familiar to you, but certainly when I first saw the video, I was thinking, yes, definitely me. I found myself working sometimes till 9, 10 p.m. And sometimes I would eat once a day. I certainly wasn't ending my workday because it was easy for me to, if it started getting dark, I could leave the office. And I had to eat and I had somewhat of a gym routine. Now I'm just stuck in a room and it's, I really have to work at not working, just detaching myself. So what I'm going to do is I have another poll now, and this is a pretty quick one. It's only asking you 2 questions. And the questions are, has working remotely positively or negatively impacted your personal life? And then the same question, but about your professional life. Wow. So I get to see the results as they're coming in. All right, so this poll was just supposed to last 20 seconds. So as you can see, and this is actually this has been my experience, that the positive effects that it's had on most people's personal life, I have not experienced. And it's probably because I don't have kids, and I didn't have anybody to miss, and it's good to see that 41% of everybody's reporting that they're having a positive effect in their personal life, and I love seeing that most of you are having a positive effect in your professional life. So tell me a little bit more. I will go ahead and stop sharing the results. You can minimize your window. And if you would do me a favor and using the chat feature, if you could just give me some examples of either the frustrations or the benefits that you have experienced as a result of having to work from home. So Bree, is the chat room open?
Yes, the chat room is open and we're getting a lot of responses from people. So just to go through them, people are saying they're working longer days, never-ending workday, inconsistent internet connection. The quality of life has improved in a great deal with no commute time. I can relate to that. Not working from home, binging on webinars. I am single and was starting to date, but now it's on hold. No human interaction, fewer interruptions and easier to schedule meetings. My manager is sometimes harder to get in contact as they're an agency executive. I find that it's harder to feel like I am on a professional team. I overwork because there are less spatial boundaries. And I'll just give 1 or 2 more. System issues that cannot be resolved. And I was just getting started in the role, so hardly know that I'm leading people.
Wow, so that's a whole mixed bag. The frustrations with the losing the connection with the network that was one of my biggest fears, actually. So when the I guess the infections or the positive and also the positive test and also the folks that were being hospitalized in Seattle, when that started happening, and it happened pretty much at a very accelerated pace. And I happen to have 2 offices in Seattle. So, and then the reports started coming in about the effects that it was having in California. So even before anybody, I guess, started mentioning telework, we have a 4-day pay period telework policy in both of my divisions. And my concern was that we were going to lose connection to the network. And since we are heavily automated and we depend entirely on our IT systems, I decided that I was going to test it. So before anybody started doing anything, I basically declared 2 full telework days for the entire organization. Because how we normally did is we would stagger people. But I can absolutely relate to the frustrations with the connection. Some of the things that were mentioned, such as there's no spatial boundaries, I'm working too long. I obviously shared my own personal experience with that, but it all seems to, everybody seems to be having a similar experience, with the exception that I'm not having a positive family experience, but that's because I don't have a family. I imagine that the isolation, and I'm certainly hearing, because I have a lot of single friends, I'm certainly hearing that the isolation is getting on people's emotional well-being. So what I would like to start doing now is moving on to objective number 2, which is to really conduct an organizational assessment. So we already talked about how it impacted us personally, and how frustrating or great it has been to not have to go into the office. But at the end of the day, we're public servants and we have a mission to accomplish. And whether this COVID-19 and having to move everybody into a telework position, whether that caused an interruption to regular operations or not, is something that we need to consider. So I want for you to think to yourself whether your organizations were able to shift to 100% telework without skipping a beat. And for those of you that did have a very seamless transition, I would ask you, I would implore upon you, I would beg you to talk to others and tell them why. Because there had to have been a foundation, there had to be a lot of groundwork that you built in order to make that transition very easy. And if you happen to fall into one of the other sides where a lot of work isn't being done right now because your organization is very paper intensive, then I think this is a perfect opportunity. Nobody wants this to happen again, but I think it's time to start thinking about whether you need to invest resources to get your organization mobile ready. And then there's, of course, our metrics. Thanks to the Government Performance and Result Act, most of us have a performance management center in our departments, and we are all required to outline whatever metrics we believe capture the essence of how we perform our mission. So again, I just want you to take some time and think to yourself whether you are performing at the same pace that you were performing before. Because I think I mentioned this earlier. I know I was talking to the AU folks. In my department, we're going through this process where we're looking at performance for March of 2019 and March of 2020, and also April of 19 and April 20. And it's pretty interesting how some organizations have performed better and some have not. So all of this is just so you can assess your organizational readiness to deal with this if it happens again. And we've heard that this might happen again. So I think we should think about it. All right. So I read this article written by Jeff Hyman, and he's with the Kellogg School of Management. And if you're interested, the link to the article is in your lower right-hand corner. And of course, the slides are going to be made available at the end of the webinar. But I felt that I felt that what Jeff Hyman was talking about really resonated, at least with what we're talking about today. So the title of his article was How to Lead Your Suddenly Virtual Team Through a Crisis. Generally, we talk as executives on how we're supposed to lead our organizations through crises. But this was unexpected, and you had to act fast. According to Hyman, one of the first things that you need to do is you need to articulate to your workforce what the organization is trying to overcome. Meaning everybody's facing their own different challenges based on your business lines. And to be able to articulate and make very clear to the staff and to the workforce, this is how this is having a negative impact on us. And this is what we're going to do in order to get past this. And Hyman says that this is particularly important right now because everybody's dealing with this uncertainty. And I found it interesting that some of the participants indicated that either they had a more difficult time trying to get a hold of their supervisor, some executives, and essentially that a lot of the interpersonal communication stopped. And that is disheartening to hear. And hopefully we can overcome all of this by the time we're done with the webinar, because I am probably communicating way too much with my staff right now because I find the need to talk to them more. But, and that leads to point number 2 for Hyman. So now is the time to over-communicate. And you need to be able to explain to your organization what the path forward is. So this is somewhat related to number 1, and I'm going to tie these all back at the end of this discussion. But when we say you need to over-communicate, we're not saying you need to copy or blind copy everybody on every email that you send. That's not what we're talking about. I think what Hyman is saying is that you need to be super clear, extremely focused, and you should ensure that your messaging to the staff is very specific and it deals with mission critical items. So this was interesting, number 3. So according to Hyman, now is also the time to micromanage and also to empower your staff. So this was a little peculiar to me, but what he's saying, and he gave a great example. He says, you know, in large scale companies, a CEO would not ordinarily think about collecting cash or counting the accounts receivable. But in circumstances like this, where your revenue just disappears overnight, then having cash is really like one of the primary things that you are concerned about. So how do you apply that to us as public servants? And I would say that it's the same. There are very few differences. The same principle applies. When everyone's working from home, you need to identify what are the vulnerabilities that the organization has. I'll tell you that one of the biggest vulnerabilities that my organization faced, and luckily we were already moving on to even more digitization, but I oversee 2 organizations that provide benefits. And we have to render decisions, either positively or adverse decisions. But first we have to develop the case. So we have to give the party, the applicant, at least 30 days for them to be able to overcome whatever the deficiencies are with the initial claim that they present before us. And we kept merrily doing our development of all cases because I had them on really good standards. But the one issue that became more and more apparent is that as we were reaching out to other federal agencies and asking them to corroborate essentially their employees' statements, the mail that was going to the federal buildings was just sitting at the federal building because the workforce was working from home and they had no way to get the mail because those organizations all still dealt with paper. So these are the things that you need to focus on. What are the challenges? What are the threats to my organization? Because if we started issuing decisions because nobody was answering us, then it wouldn't be a fair decision. It wouldn't be a just decision. So we had to make some changes. Number 4, establish the ground rules for this new way of communicating. And this goes right back to the first person that said, I feel like I can't get a hold of my boss anymore. So traditionally, your boss probably contacts you through email. And sadly, still in some departments, if you have some kind of correspondence that's going to be tracked, it has to come in this like red folder with grids, and it has to have traveled more than I've been to Europe. And all of a sudden, we're all working from home, and people don't know how to sign anything. People don't know how to route anything. But more importantly, the ability to stop by someone's office, the ability to knock on the door and say, hey, boss, I really need to talk to you. That's completely gone. And how do you approach your boss? How do you do that? Sure, you can send an email, but you're no longer able to do what you used to. And I'll talk about some ways we can overcome those challenges. And then number 5 is so important to me, and I'll tell you why. So the benefits that we administer, that I'm the administrator for, are workers' comp benefits. So number 5, Jeff Hyman says, you really should make sure that your workforce has a workspace in their home. And this is directly related to what another one of our participants said. There's no separation. There's no spatial separation between where I work, where I eat, where I watch TV, and so forth. So many of us, as I was looking at the poll results, most of us are 14s, 15s. I'm an SES. We're lucky to have a separate room. We're lucky to have fairly large homes, I guess, relatively. And even if we don't have a multi-room house, we at least have a section in at least one room where that is our workspace. That is our office. Hyman says, I can guarantee you that some of the folks on your team, that they probably live in a studio apartment in the city, and their home office is sitting on their bed. And that's not how work gets done. And I know that for a fact, because I have an office in New Orleans, and one of my supervisors told me that that's where her office was. And if it's a GS13, GS14 supervisor, I can imagine what it would be for a lower graded employee. So what can you do? Because I administer workers' comp benefits, I know that a neck strain, a back strain from working in a makeshift environment can cost a lot of money. So, and just to give you an idea of how much money we pay about $3 billion annually. And that's just for federal workers. But what I would suggest that you do is, most of us need to have a telework agreement in order for us to telework. And generally that form asks you to describe your work environment at the time that you're going to be teleworking and your telework in your remote location. So I wouldn't go as far as what Hyman suggests, but Hyman suggests that you ask them for photos. That way you can guarantee that they're not being modest and that they're not essentially sustaining injuries while they're at home. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I can't buy them furniture. And that's not what I'm suggesting, unless you can afford it. But one of the things that we're doing is my folks are on the phone a lot because we deal with folks who have sustained injuries. So I authorize the purchase of headsets for everybody. I also am going to suggest, once I look at the budget and talk to my budget officer, I think having a wireless keyboard and a wireless mouse is pretty essential. Because for those who don't have a separate space, who don't have a desk, it's just that much harder to have to work in your government furnished equipment. So, and some folks in my organization have asked if they can borrow one of the monitors that is sitting in the office. If you can do that, let them. You want to keep your workforce happy. So less for $100, headset, wireless mouse, wireless keyboard. If you can afford it, do it, because it's going to pay off in spades. That's all I can say. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the first two pointers that Hyman provided. And there's a reason why I'm coming back to these two, because first he said you really need to convey to your organization what the challenges are and how you're going to navigate through them. And then in the second suggestion, he says now is a time to over-communicate. Now is a time to not let them sit at home and feel that nobody is watching over them, that nobody cares about them, that nobody's there to guide them through this process. And I'm focusing on these two because they're all about communicating. So obviously we're not in the office, and how do you do your communication? How do you do communicating from home? Sure, you can instant message, you can text, you can Skype, you can do all kinds of stuff, right? But I would suggest that we can do more. And I think this isn't even a video. It's an animation. It has no audio to it. No, well, it does. It has music, but no one speaks anything. So pay attention to what the words are. So not only was it a cute little video, and did it match the background on my PowerPoint, but it really honed in on what I'm trying to, I guess, express to all of you. If you want to be an effective leader, we all have the recipe for it, and we are going to school for it. But just like public speaking and grooming for debates and going through a murder board right before you're about to testify before Congress, that stuff isn't taught and it isn't learned. It isn't learned in the normal fashion. No one's going to feed it to you. You have to take the initiative. You have to think, and you have to be desirous of having your message reach far and wide. So I think technology is the way to do that. So I want to say about 18 offices around the country, and I have to schedule. Generally at the beginning of the year, I will commit to my boss that I'm going to go at least to half of them. And that is a challenge because between that and my personal life, personal vacations, and just work generally, it becomes difficult. 2 years ago, I think I did them all in 1 year, and that was pretty painful. I love going out to the field and talking to the staff, especially as I'm launching new initiatives that are directly going to impact them, because I want to convey to them why I'm doing these things. It's generally to improve their work environment and also to improve our performance. And it's all directed at improving the overall services that we provide to our customers, right? So in my world, we administer workers' comp. Our customers are varied. So we have the employers who have to pay essentially the bill for any injuries that their employees sustain. And then we have the injured workers, right? So we have two customers here, and I need to treat them equally in the sense that they all have needs. So how do I focus on being customer-centric? Well, just like the little animation video said, You focus on what your primary customers' experiences are. What are the services that you provide? And then you find ways to improve upon them. So it was one of the things that came up and I heard this in a couple of agencies. Well, if we're going to shut down the office, then who's going to be there to receive the people that walk in? I think I asked how many people we actually walk into our office, and there's very few. So what that tells me is that the old way of doing business, where folks back 26 years ago when I was a lower level employee, I would actually have a little waiting area, and I would talk to them about their case. Nobody does that anymore. Everybody wants to shoot off an email, to upload a document, or to leave a voicemail message. So because of technology, the way that our primary customers are experiencing what are the services that we deliver, we have to change how we deliver those services. So mobile apps, web portals, you name it, we try to do it. Interactive voice response telephone systems where you can self-serve. We have, like I said, web portals where you can authenticate. You can even look at your actual case. That's what I mean about being customer-centric, and that's what I mean about being an effective leader. Not only is it beneficial because you're tailoring your solutions and the services that you're providing to your customers, but I think we're all facing shrinking budgets, and automation is a good way to address them. So number 2, tech savvy. Again, you're delivering your services in a convenient and efficient manner. Now, when I look at tech savvy, also, I harken back to me having to go to all these offices and not being able to make it to all of them. Just like I'm talking to you, I think there's over 250 folks that are in the webinar, or at least that's how many registered. Just like I'm able to communicate to 250 people right out of my bedroom, you can communicate with your organization. And the sharper, the richer the communication that you provide to your staff by incorporating technology, whether it's video, whether it's a PowerPoint, whether it's, whatever, they will be able to feel your vision, which goes right to number 3. You need to have a strong vision and a purpose, and you need to convey convincingly. You want to be that person that people follow, right? Generally, when you're about to embark on change, nobody likes change. I went to the Army War College, and one of the generals said, nobody likes change other than a baby with a dirty diaper. And I really believe that that's true. Nobody likes to have to learn something new. But if you articulate to the workforce what it is that you're doing and the benefits, the tremendous benefits that it's going to have, they will follow you. And they will know that all of the heartache and all of the turmoil that they have to go through in order to get past that change and that transition is going to be worth it. So again, you can convey your message in a much better way by incorporating technology. I'm a huge fan of software simulations. So, and I'll show you what I'm talking about later. Be adaptive and agile. So obviously I had nothing to do with the creation of the video, but it said that you need to embrace uncertainty and that you need to reorganize around opportunity. And that is the essence of this entire webinar. This is something that was foisted upon us, not something that we thought, not something that we expected. But as what is the saying, you make lemonade out of lemons? That's really what being an adaptive leader is all about. You see something that is foisted upon you. It jars the reality that everybody's accustomed to. You go in there and you find an opportunity. Find an opportunity to create that change that has been so necessary, but your senior leadership didn't want to do it because they just, they believe in management by walking around or whatever the saying is. But that was great. There was a time and a place for that. But right now we're in the digital age. And that's why I started with that video. Yes, cars are driving themselves. Now all you have to do is you can find a date and you can find a ride, all from the convenience of your phone. So you have to be adaptive and you have to be agile and you have to develop solutions as a public servant that are going to address the public's needs in a way that the public consumes it. Data. You got to be data driven. I've learned this this lesson the hard way. While I'm a big risk taker, and I think anybody who has worked with me would say the same. Most of the times that I went all in and engaged in a lot of risk, the rewards were plentiful, and I have rarely, thank God, I've rarely failed colossally when I embarked on a new change. But I will tell you that after all of those change efforts that I've done, you have to look at the data, and you have to be neutral, and you have to be objective when you look at the data. It doesn't matter how badly you want to do this or how badly you want to change that. If the data doesn't support it, don't do it. Don't do it, because you're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of other people's time, and probably some money doing it too. All right, so back to the message here. You want to embrace communications technology, because why? It's going to make you a better leader. So back in the day when radio and television was first introduced, people probably thought it was like the devil box or something. This was a way to reach the masses. Before television, we see still some pictures of people sitting around the radio and just listening to the president, the fireside chats. So I think now is the transformational time for us to really leverage technology and increase the virtual reach that we have into our organizations. And it doesn't matter if you might be a GS13 supervisor or a GS14, branch chief or team leader, whatever your position is, do not think that you cannot make a change. I started off as a GS9, I believe, 26 years ago. That was a long time ago. But it was just every time I saw something and said, that can be done easier, I went after it. And not everybody agreed. Sure, I was turned down a lot, and I was told to stop a lot. But eventually, people understood that what I was doing was having good effects on the organization. So again, articulate your message. Start using all of these video, all of these different technologies that are available to you right now, probably. That way, you're the one that's known for video calling people. You're the one that's known for Skyping and IMing people. You're the one who's known for desktop sharing. And oh, how easy was that meeting? I couldn't believe it. Everything that we were all trying to say was just easily conveyed through the sharing of the person's screen. So for those of you that are in management positions, particularly those of you who have faced a difficult time recruiting good talent, this is the way to go. I'll tell you. I started recruiting outside of DC for our national office back in, I want to say 2000, and it was crazy talk back then. But you want somebody to work for the national office in DC if they're going to be in Florida. Well, I do, because that person is very talented and that person has the skill set that I need. Eventually, I was afforded the opportunity to at least bring someone on detail. That person is now one of my SCS deputies. But you really improve the talent that you are able to recruit. Why would you limit yourself to just an applicant pool that is here in Washington, D.C.? In DC, of all places. I mean, this is a federal city. Anybody can have a GS13, GS14 job without a whole lot of effort. Sadly, that is. But a GS14 and GS15 means a lot out in the field. And I would say that you have very capable, very educated, very committed folks that want to be public servants out there. And if you just position your organization in a way that it's mobile ready, you don't have to limit your talent, your applicant pool. All right. The other reason that you probably want to do this is, hey, we live in a global economy. We have travel demands. I just told you I couldn't even travel to all of my offices. And I'll tell you what, when I do travel, the work doesn't stop. It continues and it continues and it continues. And so I will either be in an Uber from the airports to the hotel, at the hotel, setting up my Surface Pro. I'm working the entire time. But that's because I am accustomed to these tools and I'm on the go. All right. So the person that said, I can't get a hold of my boss, you need to call your boss and you need to tell your boss about all of these things. And if your boss won't listen, won't turn on these applications, talk to 3 or more of your coworkers and like have an intervention with your boss, because really this is the way to communicate. And not hearing from your leadership is unacceptable. So you have instant messaging, you have video conferencing where you can video conference multiple people. You have video calling. Like I could call one of you right now and you would see the same video that the other 240 people are seeing. Remote access and desktop sharing. That is one of my favorite things to do. And I know that if there's anybody who's an IT specialist that's on here, you probably are saying, you don't know what kind of security violations are happening. Yes, this is modern day software. And this has been accepted and it meets all security standards, and therefore you should make use of it. So I will talk to you, for those of you who don't use any of these tools. And please do not, I know that several of you do use these tools, but I'm thinking that maybe a handful probably don't, or they don't use them in combination. But this can really enrich your life as well as your staff's. So I say, hey, if you're ready and you want to embrace the opportunity of a lifetime, because this is a transformational time, here are some of the tools that I use. And again, this is not meant to impress you. Nope. Probably, like I said, about 95% of you already use these. But if I can reach at least 5%, and that 5% reaches a little more, then that is enough for me to have done my job. And since I'm the only senior executive in the room, the fact that I do it should hopefully encourage you to tell your boss, there was an SES and he was talking about all this stuff. Why can't you do it? And you know what? This is going to be recorded. Show them the recording. So let's start with the most common application that we have at least in my department. And I'm going to focus only on Microsoft applications because those are the ones pretty much that have been approved by most government agencies. So this is Skype for Business. And if most of you have used Skype for Business, then I apologize that I'm going to take up three minutes of your time. But for those of you that don't use it, this is perfect. And this is perfect actually because you have presence indicators. So you know those boundaries. Hey, I'm off work, or hey, I'm at lunch. I'm not here 24/7 for you. That's okay. You can tell them through these presence indicators.
With Skype for Business, you can keep track of your coworkers through presence indicators. The 3 most common are green, red, and yellow, which mean available, busy, and away. Skype for Business changes these indicators based on your activity and Outlook schedule. Because Tony's available, I'll send him an instant message. When I hover over his picture, these buttons appear. I'll click the first one to start the IM. You can often see more information over here next to their name. It looks like Alex is in a conference call and Katie is out all day. 2 other indicators are Do Not Disturb and Offline. Skype for Business automatically sets your presence to Do Not Disturb when you're presenting so that your presentation won't be interrupted by an IM or phone call. If you sign out of Skype for Business, you'll appear as offline. One more thing, you can set your presence manually by clicking this arrow next to your picture. This is helpful when you're busy, want to appear away, or don't want to be disturbed. For more about Skype for Business, visit aka.ms/meetsfb.
All right, so again, very handy, very nifty. It is tied to your Outlook, and if you're in a meeting, it says that you are not available. It's also really nice because one of the things that I've experienced is that I don't commit to memory anybody's phone number because I usually just go to their office or through our IVR, I know their like extension. But now that we're all working from home, what I started doing is essentially in my presence indicator, I'll say I can be reached at this number. And I've started asking my staff to do the same because it's really convenient for me just to pick up whatever phone is around me and call that number. So this is my favorite part of Skype, which is actually, I love desktop sharing.
Skype for Business lets you share your desktop and programs during a meeting. Click the Present button, the one here that looks like a monitor, and click Present Desktop. You'll see a preview of what you're going to share with others, so hide anything you want to keep private. Click Present when you're ready. Now, I'll open the slide deck I want to share. I can use the sharing bar to hand over control to other people on the meeting. Click Give Control, then click someone's name. Now Genevieve can make changes to the slide deck.
Great for collaborating on a document.
And when she's done, I click Give Control again, and then take back control. People can also request control. You receive an alert, which you can accept or decline. When you're finished sharing, click Stop Presenting to go back to your meeting window. You can also share documents by dragging them into the window. If you're just chatting with someone on Skype for Business, all these features work too. Just click Present to start. For more about Skype for Business, visit
All right, so the reason why I like desktop sharing is because you know some executives have like a whiteboard in their offices or like in the conference table or the conference room. So I don't have a whiteboard. I just have a big flat screen. And I've encouraged my direct staff, my deputies and so forth, to get flat screens because I'm a very visual person. And I think that a lot of time can be wasted putting each other to death by email. No, that's not what I meant. Well, this is what I meant. No, does this make sense? No. And you just like, enough already. So the best way, and I think now I even most of the folks that work with me prefer to use this. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. A shared desktop is worth 1,000,000 words. It's just easy to know what the person's trying to convey to you without having to imagine.
Video call.
And of course, it's just a regular video call.
Hey Ken, what's up?
Smile, we're making a video.
Okay then.
All right.
To learn more about Skype for Business, visit AK.
So recently, and actually one of the folks in the earlier video, when they were talking about telework, was I think like one of the field directors for Teams. So Teams is a different piece of software, also from Microsoft, but I think that it's better for team projects. You know, like if all of you are developing a module on, I don't know, it could be a training module, it could be a specific IT application, but that's where essentially you create your own channel and you share. It's like your own personal virtual space, and I'll show you what that looks like.
Hi there. Welcome to Microsoft Teams, a collaboration app that helps your team stay organized and have conversations all in one place. Let's start with, what else? Teams. Here, you can see a list of all the teams you're part of. Teams are made up of channels. You can build them by topic, department, or just for fun. Channels are where the real work gets done, where you hold meetings, have team conversations, and share files. At the top of each channel, you'll find tabs. They're like links to your favorite files, apps, and services. Want to have a quick on-the-spot meeting with people in your channel? Select Meet Now. In a meeting, you can show content from your computer or record your meeting. When you share a file in a channel conversation, you and your team can edit it at the same time and share thoughts alongside it. To find all the files that have been shared in a channel, go to the Files tab at the top of the channel.
This is an easy
To see all the files ever shared across the team, click Files on the left. Want to talk privately with a person or group? Click New Chat at the top and type their names. Give the chat a name to make it easier to find later. To make a call directly from a chat, click Video Call or Audio Call. In some cases, if your organization has set it up, you can call anyone from Teams using calls, even if they're not using.
You get the picture, right? So it's the nice feature about this over Skype for Business is that if you are in a, let's say, a 5-month project, whether it's an acquisition project that you're trying to, procure a big IT contract, or if you're trying to, work on, like I said, an IT application, actually developing it, and you're building the requirements. The good thing about Teams is that it stores your files. The worst is when you're trying to find, okay, we both know what file we're talking about, but we're all digging through our email, but nobody can figure out where it's at. So this kind of just keeps a track of everything that you're sharing as a team as it relates to that particular project, and the files also. So that's what this is good for. For me personally, it's not as useful because I'm not a member of teams that are engaging in a project or in a deliverable, but I can definitely see how this would be beneficial for a variety of folks. So,
using Teams.
All right, so the other thing that I want to talk to you guys, webinars, kind of like what you're seeing right now. And this is more, I guess, aimed at people who are agency heads or division heads. Generally, when we're trying to communicate with a massive audience, we would hold a conference, and now those conferences are not possible. So what we do, and if you want to impress your boss, if this is a dilemma at work, is we have these webinars, and you have all kinds of companies that will do them for you. And there are a variety of features that can come with these webinars. Kind of like Brianne was basically, she had muted me, she was talking to you, she's able to turn on the polls, turn them on, publish them, do all kinds of stuff, and she can also talk. This is kind of like the hand holding that will be done for your executive or for your senior leader if they have the need to conduct a large scale webinar. So some of the things that you may want to consider is, do you want to hire a moderator or not? I generally like to hire a moderator if we're going to take questions from the public, because if you just unmute the phones, it gets kind of crazy. So should you hire a professional or utilize staff? I don't know. That's up to you. Some folks have a personal preference that they like their team members to be a part of the entire process. One of the things that I just recently did is we did a stakeholder outreach. And this was because we were required, we were looking to get input and feedback from several of our partners. And therefore, whoever was on the other side of the webinar needed to be able to interact with us through either a web chat or through some kind of recording process. And then there's like the really official stuff, right? If there's records management, if the records can actually be subpoenaed later, such as is the case sometimes in rulemaking, then you need to ensure that, one, the company that you're hiring is legit, and two, that they have that there's a plan B. Because if everything's happened in a virtual environment, it should be easier to record, but you should be surprised at some of the horror stories that I've heard. So obviously there are advantages and disadvantages, but I guess what I'm saying is that just because you're working from home, it doesn't mean that you can't do your regular job. In fact, in my view, I think you can do your regular job and even do it in a more efficient way. So that's just on meetings and communicating with each other. Or as the guy in the video said, like how interpersonally nutritious, your interactions will be. This, I actually hesitated to show this because I'm wearing the same tie in both videos, and they're like taken, I want to say maybe like 4 years apart. But what I'm trying to convey to you is that I'm a firm believer in integrating video and other types of media content in order to deliver a message. So for example, the one in the top left, you see me with another gentleman. So that is the president of our National Council of Federated Labor Locals. That essentially is the national union in my department. And we were embarking on this other large-scale change for the organization. I think he called it the largest one in the history of the program. And I wanted to show the staff that I had partnered with their union leadership, because it was that important to me. So we both recorded a video, and we played it at the time that we announced the change, and I think it was received fairly well. On the lower right-hand corner, you have essentially a training model. So this is only a month old, and what we were doing here is we were changing the case management system that the organization uses and completely replacing it with a brand new one. And this is essentially our introduction. This is their introduction, meaning the workforce's introduction into this new application. And I started with a video essentially just explaining what it was. You know, everybody's heard about it. These are the neat features, and this is why it's important that you embrace this. It's going to make your life easier like this, this, and this. And then when you started delving into the different, collapsible and expandable menus that you have there on the left, it wasn't text that they were seeing. They were software simulations. So because we're introducing a new piece of software and to convey to them how to use it, it's a narrated video of someone actually using the application to either adjudicate a case or issue a payment, you know, conduct an informal conference, do whatever it is that you need to do. But again, you're conveying the message, and you're conveying it in a way that is easy for them to digest, and it makes it a little interesting. Nobody wants to read a dense book. So I would also implore upon you that you know what, you need to build tech-based solutions in order to meet the demands of your stakeholders. So this is an application this is actually the application that I was stating that by the end of this fiscal year, all departments and agencies will be using. And this very neatly, very simply, it's jam-packed with a lot of goodies. If you want to send something to my office, no matter, you know, wherever it is in the country, all you have to do is upload the document. You can do it from your phone. If you want to look at the case, if you want to look at anything about your case, you can figure out whether the request for payment that you sent us, whether someone's sitting on it, whether a check has been issued, and if the check has been issued, for how much. So, and then here on the lower, here, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, it says track status of form or document. We spit back out at the person once they give us once they upload a document and they tell us what it is, we give them a control number. So what that is just like your regular UPS or FedEx. It tells them where the document has been, meaning is it still sitting in the mailroom or has it gone here or there? So all of that is basically to convey to you that you can make a state-of-the-art organization if you just keep talking about how it is possible. So in the opening video that we saw, the gentleman who was narrating was talking about artificial intelligence, and that is actually something that I'm looking at for some of the solutions that I'm trying to build, the future solutions. And when I mentioned it to some folks in my organization, they looked at me like I had three eyes. But it really is not that new of a technology, and it's being scaled in a way that we can afford it. So why not? And I guess that is the attitude that I'm trying to impart on you. Why don't you try it? If you bank, and if you email, and if you mobile, why isn't your organization the same way? And you should not stop asking that question until you don't have any more questions to ask. So, if you're ready to jump off that iceberg like the rest of us penguins, I would say that I have one last video and then we'll go to questions, all right? I really like this video. I don't care too much for the video production, but I think it quotes a lot of important people in our history and also really delivers a good message.
Jack Welch once said, "Change before you have to." How true that is. Championship leaders understand that in order to remain relevant and competitive, they must foster a culture that embraces change. When you think about the brands that have been around for 100+ years, how they looked in the beginning is much different than how they look now. They changed. The brands they once competed with no longer exist. Why? They didn't change. Grace Hopper once said, "The most dangerous phrase in language is, 'We've always done it this way.'" As the leader, you must relentlessly fight this mindset. Don't allow your team to focus on how things used to be, because used to be's don't make honey. Instead, focus on how things are gonna be. Gonna be's make honey. Gonna be's have a clear vision of the future and how they need to grow in order to become that better version of themselves. They understand constant growth requires constant change. Remember what John Maxwell once said, "Change is inevitable. Growth is optional." Close your eyes and visualize what things will look like in 3 years. How will you need to evolve in order to meet that vision and be a front runner in your space when the time comes? What changes do you need to make? Start making those changes now. As the leader, you have the remote. If you don't like the channel you're on, nobody can change it but you. So stand up and change it. And don't be afraid of the naysayers. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Do what you feel is right, for you will be criticized anyways. Trust your instincts. Pursue your vision. Even if no one else sees it, just start the journey. The others will follow. And stay ready. New levels will bring new devils. But the higher you climb, the stronger you'll get. Take pride in being a professional problem solver as you rise. Remind your team that every change you make is an effort to get better. You don't change for the sake of changing. Like Jim Rohn said, life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. At the core behind every big change is a why, and that why is to get better.
All right. So now I'm going to ask Bree, if you can help me out here, because I guess I don't know whether you said that we would take questions either through the web chat or maybe orally. So I am open to whatever the group wants.
Yep, so we do have quite a few questions coming in through the chat, and I can go.
Oh, look at the time. No.
Yeah. But in the meantime, also, if anyone wants to speak directly to Tony and share your comments or questions, you can use the raise hand feature, and that is in the participants panel. And then someone from our team, Jennifer Lamond, will unmute you. But just to go to the questions that we have now, so right off the bat, a lot of people really love this last video that you shared, and they want us to know where they could find it to share it with their teams.
I will certainly make all of the links to the videos available on the presentation slides, so I can certainly give you a different version of that.
Okay, perfect. And I'll be sure to share that with everyone after the presentation today. And then another question that just came in is, change is good, but lack of physical people connection is strange. Thoughts on, do you think this change is long term?
I think the move towards virtual presence is the way of the future. I don't mean to suggest, by the way, if I didn't say this earlier, I don't mean to suggest that we're never going to see each other. That's not at all what I envision. I just believe that offering flexibilities is probably where we need to go. not only do you afford yourself a larger talent pool when you're recruiting for key positions and even non-key positions, but you're being mobile ready. So let me give you an example. On Friday, I'm going to do a webinar for my organization, the largest division that I run. And the reason I'm doing this is because I feel that there's a need for me to communicate to them. And during the course of the meeting, I'm going to talk to them about this initiative that I set forth at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is to blur or get rid of our jurisdictional lines. So it's a concept that nobody really can wrap their heads around. But what I'm saying is we're going to be one virtual program. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that it's the way of the future. Because right now, if I have an office in San Francisco and one in New York, and and I'll use my Boston office because my Boston office is pretty small. Let's say they have 12 people. If we lose 2 people in my Boston office, that is a big, big impact on the rest of the staff there because 1, they don't have to share that extra workload. And 2, it's going to take 3 months before we recruit somebody and we fully train somebody to get on, to start doing cases. So, whereas in San Francisco, the rent is really high. And I'm not sure that with my shrinking budget, I'm going to continue to make that one of my biggest offices, But those are decisions that I can make once I get rid of these jurisdictional lines, because it allows me the freedom and the flexibility to shift work around. And without having to think whether I have enough people in Jacksonville or in Chicago or in Dallas. It doesn't matter, because if I lose a couple of people in one office, the shift of the work turns into a very minimal pain, as opposed to it's just, it turns into very minimal pain if you distribute the work around the nation. As opposed to if you're just in an office, like in Boston, and you lose 2 people, God, that means you're gonna probably take a caseload that represents 20% of what you already have. So I do think it's the way of the future, but it's not binary. They're not mutually exclusive. You can do both. You can broaden the people that you can recruit from, but you can set your own rules because you're the leader of the organization. And I don't think that it's ever going to get to the point where people are just not going to show up at the office.
Thank you. We have a lot more questions. We have a follow-up question to that. So this person says, I get the technology and telework. The flexibility is terrific and accessibility is endless. However, the lack of personal touch through face-to-face communication is daunting and concerning. So if you have any thoughts on that.
I say try that technology, because I do not feel that I miss any connection with any of my staff, because I talk to them like this. They get to see all of my facial expressions. I get to see all of theirs, and we can work just like we're at a desk, because I'm putting the document up on our share screen, and it's as though we're both essentially right next to each other. And for example, the one deputy SCS that I said I hired from Florida a long time ago. The solution is to bring them to travel, essentially. So, well, we can't afford all that travel. So I'll continue with that example. So up until when she was in SCS, the locality pay is a lot less in Florida. So the locality pay generally will be a lot less than it is here in DC. And the amount of locality pay that you save in a full year, that person can come to DC probably like 6 weeks out of the year. So what I'm saying is you can blend and you can give yourself maximum flexibility. And I really would encourage you to start using these tools. And I'm not saying that you're not using them. Perhaps you do use them and it's not enough for you. But if you haven't used them, do it religiously, and it's absolutely going to change your life.
Great. And another question that just came in, what would you suggest to a talent manager who is only focusing on putting out training to staff and not really focusing on what an employee has to offer? getting to know better the organization's pool of talented staff.
So what advice, I'm sorry, it was a question of this, what advice would I give that person?
Yeah, what would you suggest to that manager who is only focusing on more training and not adapting to what people already know how to do?
Right. So I'm beginning to wonder if this is an employee in my division. I'm kidding. But so there's a couple of things. One, training should not be punitive. And I'll tell you that for years and years and years, if an office was performing poorly in one thing or another, the entire office had to undergo the training. With the support of my political appointee boss, she and I are of the belief that you agree should not have to sit through 3 hours of training simply because Jen did not get how to make a payment. So I believe that being laser focused in whatever solutions, whether it's training or whether it's employee recognition, that you need to be laser focused, and that in and of itself will allow you to recognize the talent and also afford those that are challenged the opportunity to improve. So I would say reassess whatever it is that you're doing as a leader, and ask yourself, why do you keep training? So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So it sounds to me like you're being trained repeatedly and nothing's happening. And it also sounds to me like you believe that the senior leader is not able to see the forest from the trees, or the inverse. In this case, you want them not to treat everybody the same, but you want them to recognize that there's talent there. And this year, what I'm doing, as a matter of fact, on Friday's webinar, I will be acknowledging 10 people in the organization and giving them each $1,500. And what I'm saying is, I see you. I am looking at the great performance that you are achieving, and I am rewarding you for it. Not everybody in the organization is getting $1,500. You are, and I am calling you out specifically. Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, in the same webinar, I will be talking about basically how many people are going to get placed on a PIP. Because the overarching message that I'm trying to send to the organization is that everybody is accountable. And just like I'm willing to recognize somebody for doing a great job, in the same breath, I can also say, and unfortunately, some folks, I'm not going to call them by name, but some folks who do not meet this, and this, they're probably going to be seeing a performance improvement plan. And they will go through the PIP process for the next 90 days. So be fair, be honest, and pay attention to specifics is what I would tell that executive.
And that kind of relates to another question that we got a bit earlier, is how do you effectively integrate new technology, such as the ones we went over today, in a group with varying degrees of comfort and adaptive capabilities to embrace new technology, and when there is not an ability for direct in-person training?
I laugh because we're deploying our new learning management system also, and I'm going to tell the staff about that at this webinar on Friday. So what I've done in terms of the in-person training. So I've been in the business of basically trying to figure out how to deploy new policies and procedures, and that requires that you train folks on how to execute them, right? And what I kept hearing over and over is everybody learns differently. Some people like to hear things, some people like to see things. And yes, we're all different learners. So what is the solution? Try to mix as much media and as much interactivity to the training that is going to give that person and is going to satiate their need for interaction. I say give them sensory overload. Clearly what I tried to do through this session is I tried to incorporate different types of media, because I wanted this to feel like, honestly, it feels to me like a regular town hall. So I would say be creative. So what we were doing right now, the training platform, the learning management system that we're deploying, I essentially said you have to incorporate videos. If you're going to be training them on, let's just say, payments, right? How do we show a payment? Start with a video. Let them get that level of comfort that they know who's training them. And by the way, the trainer is the trainer for the entire nation. So it's always her. Tell them the dense part, which means this is how you have to calculate a payment. Show them a software simulation of how they would literally key it in the user interface of the software. And then at the end, give them some type of practical exercise that will immerse them into actually having to hit a hotspot in order for them to get to the next piece. So you are getting, at that point, a full experience where you had a person talking to you and telling you why you're about to learn what you're about to learn. You could read it. Then you had a little software simulation showing you this is what you need to click on in order to accomplish the task. And then you make them do it. So to me, that is probably much better training. And of course, I know I'm different, but to me, that is more like hands-on training than to have someone in person talking at me. So I would just say mix the different types of medias that you can.
Thank you. And we have just a couple of more questions before we have to wrap up. But someone wanted to hear more about how you would go through the process of blurring the divisional lines.
How do I do it?
Mm-hmm.
Geez, there's all kinds of different facets to it. So first, it's a change of working conditions. So I would have to notify the union, which I have. And the piece that is the most complex, and if anybody in my organization is tuning in, the piece that's more complex is the IT piece. Because we have been, just like the guy in the video said, we've been doing it that way since I started 26 years ago. Meaning we have all been sectioned off, and sadly, everybody in their own silo started adjudicating cases differently. And not just that, our IT systems were also trained that everybody goes in a silo. And what I'm essentially doing is we're having to put our system on the operating table, teach it completely brand new logic on how it assigns cases. And for existing cases, we're shuffling them all up. And in order to be as fair as possible, because that was one of the intents of blurring jurisdictional lines, is to even out the workload. In some offices, we have folks with about 500 cases and folks in another office with 1,000 cases. That's not right. And my goal with this is to make sure that everybody has exactly 532 cases, or whatever it is that is going to be the equal division. So the answer to your question is we have to open up our IT system and insert completely different logic into it. And because the workforce is so accustomed to running certain reports, like this is my deliverable here, this is a massive rework of how everybody's wired. So that's why, even though I'm not going to blur the jurisdictions until September, I'm talking to them about it now. And I'm not letting the fact that we're all working from home get in the way. My plan was to talk to them.
Thank you. And our last question before we go is, do you feel due to COVID that once the pandemic is over, federal agencies will push for more telework days?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of agencies were towing, the party line, for a lack of a better phrase, that either folks couldn't work consecutively, couldn't telework consecutive days, and that's why you just can't telework more. Mm-hmm. Or the IT system is not capable to withstand, all of that bandwidth, all of that load on the network. This has essentially, in one fell swoop, taken away every potential reason for not opening up telework. And I guarantee you that the unions are going to start pushing it. And that's what I'm saying. If you put yourself in the mindset that it is not a problem, that it is fine, because you're not going to anybody's desk and you're not visiting with them. And if you are, you're not letting them work. It's how you establish your performance management system and how you hold folks accountable for meeting your expectations. That's what matters. That is where you invested the time and the money, not on making sure that there's a warm body in the seats. But your question was, do I think that that this is going to be pursued? Yes, I do.
Okay, and that was the last question we have in our chat, and I don't think we have any raised hands, but so many people have said this has been a great session, and they are looking forward to the recording, which will be on our website next Tuesday. So anyone who's still on the line, please look out for that announcement. And this has been a great session. We're getting a lot of thank yous still. Yeah,
excellent.
That's all we have.
Well, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.